Hey guys, I'm Jay Randall, and welcome back to my channel where I discuss wisdom for the modern man. Welcome back to another live stream. It's been a while since I've done a live stream. I had to take a break off of live streams because I needed to get the proper equipment to be able to live stream effectively. Ooh, hold up. Gotta lower that. Okay. But yeah, I had to get the proper equipment to live stream effectively. But we're back. Everything's working smoothly. If you guys are just joining the live stream, I appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know how the audio sounds, right? Because I want to make sure everything sounds clean and crisp as I begin streaming. I want you guys to let me know how the streaming quality is. Is the video choppy? Is it stuttering? Let me know how I can adjust it because I want to give you guys the best streaming experience possible. But back to the topic at hand. Today's video, I'm going to be live streaming a Piers Morgan. I'm going to be reacting to a Piers Morgan YouTube video, Piers Morgan Uncensored. It's one about, it's one with Andrew Wilson and his wife, and they are debating a feminist on how feminism affects men, women, relationships, society, and whether or not it's actually beneficial to society. So, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Also, if you guys are just joining the stream, whenever you happen to, please go ahead and leave a like. And if you're enjoying it, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to grow the channel, trying to get it to 1,000 subscribers so we can do. Let's get right into the video.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is rarely out of the spotlight. That's her job, after all, and for what it's worth, she seems to be very good at it. But a behind-the-scenes photograph posted by a colleague for Mother's Day in America has divided opinion, even among a generally appreciative MAGA base. 16 million people saw this candid snap of Leavitt in the White House, seemingly holding her baby son in one arm while, quotes, owning the libs, close quotes, with the other. A lot of those people applauded her as a super mom. Many others criticised her for aping conservative family values while actually promoting a feminist myth about women who can have it all. That might seem a bit harsh, but the MAGA movement she's part of has made big inroads in popular culture by promoting the return of traditional gender roles. Here she is talking about masculinity back in 2023.
And contributes to his community. A great example, helping an elderly woman with her groceries, helping a neighbor or a friend, putting others before yourself. That's the definition of a man. I'm proud to have so many strong men in my life, 2 older brothers, a great father. We love men, we need men, and as women, Jen, we should not be afraid to say that.
Well, there's undeniably been a huge backlash to the whole era of demoralizing all men as miniature. You can read about how that's going on in my upcoming new book, Woke is Dead. Has there ever been a better time for a book called Woke is Dead? But
like I said, if you guys are watching the stream, let me know how the audio quality is. Both my audio quality comes from the mic and the video quality. Want to make sure all that sounds clean and crisp. So if you help me out with that, leave a comment. Let me know if everything sounds good. We're getting back into live streaming, so I want to make sure.
Women who thought it was a very good idea. Andrew Wilson was extolling the virtues of a more limited female role in a previous debate on Uncensored when a shocked Emily Austin said this.
Are you married?
Yeah, I'm married. How do you make married with many children?
Is your
How
wife
about
happy?
You married with children? Oh, she's ecstatic.
No, I'm 23.
She's
I'm
gonna
a
bring
boss
me-
lady girl, which seems to be driving you crazy.
Yeah.
Working, making
well,
money,
I'm just pointing
waiting
out
for the right guy to
the
come
only
along.
thing you have no arguments. You just try to assault me personally.
Well, Andrew Wilson's apparently ecstatic wife, Rachel, got in touch on X and told me she'd like to participate in our next debate. And so she will. She'll be joining us alongside an all-new panel of boss lady girls. Well, joining me now is the host of
Lady
Crucible,
Girls.
Andrew Wilson, Andrew's wife and author of Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation, Rachel Wilson, Emily Wilson, no relation, from Emily Saves America, and the feminist writer and author of I Don't, The Case Against Marriage, Clementine Ford. So welcome to all of you. Andrew, great to have you back on Uncensored. Are you remotely apprehensive about unleashing Mrs. Wilson on the world like this?
No, but she is the only Wilson on the panel that I claim. I'm just pointing that out.
Everyone seems to be either called Wilson or Emily in this debate, in this two-header. Rachel, welcome to Uncensored. You reached out to me on X and very boldly said, If you want to debate this properly, get me on. You're here. How are you feeling about this?
Well, thank you for having me, Piers, and thank you, Andrew, for unchaining me from the stove just long enough to appear today. I got a day pass from the patriarchy.
Patriarchy is benevolent.
It's so true. Yeah. So I'm very happy to be here. People love to attack my husband via me. I'm like the favorite way to do that. So I thought.
Cut to the quick. A lot of Andrew's critics, not me, a lot of his critics say that he's an obvious, blatant misogynist. He thinks all women should be, kept at home, working away on the stove, the housework, whatever it may be, and know their place in life. You are actually married to him. You've been subject of mockery inadvertently through the last debate we had about this for having to endure being his wife. What is it like being married to Andrew Wilson?
And I think that's a really good question. And I also know that most of the mocking most definitely came from feminists, which is crazy because they say that they're all for, stay-at-home moms and women who choose the life of a traditional woman. But every time that narrative is pushed, every time a man advocates for wanting that kind of woman, every time a woman advocates for wanting that kind of lifestyle, they get shamed. So it's great that they actually brought her on so she can speak to the experience of a woman who made that choice, because it's often demonized, and it's never by men, because of course most men want that. It's always by certain groups of women, and we all know that that is the feminist movement. But let's hear what she has to say, because I think it's going to be very important.
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, he's hilarious. He's a really smart guy. He's very charming. And most of all, he's a great dad and a great husband. And I share his worldview, so I would agree. In fact, I would say I would probably be the more bitter misogynist out of the two of us. If you really had to, pick one, it would probably be me. So.
Really? Why do you say that?
I just think that feminism has absolutely destroyed so much of what I hold dear in life, and it's held me back more than it's helped me. It's one of the reasons I started looking into the history and investigating it for myself. A two-income economy, and for women like me who do want to prioritize motherhood, it makes it extremely hard. It just makes it financially difficult. I faced tons of social pressure. Had my first daughter at 20, wanted to stay home. Everyone around me, even the so-called Christian conservative women, told me it was a terrible idea. You can't do that. You have to bring the baby to daycare. You're going to put yourself at risk. Your husband's going to hurt you. You're going to be abused if you don't have your own money and your own career. And
yeah, there's one thing I've noticed when it comes to feminism. It's viewing women as burdens. And this is something I've even noticed in my dating, right? Just before I even met my girl, modern women view children as burdens, as a hindrance, all of that. It's like it's something that just holds them back. And I started to get very turned off hearing women speak of connotation. Back in the day, it was very common for a woman to, be super excited about the idea of having kids and starting a family. Of course I want kids. I would love to have kids. Now it's like, I don't know. And if they do say they want to have kids, because I was always ask them, if that's something they see in their future. Of course, if you're dating someone, you want to ask that question. And they always, 9 times out of 10, say they want the kids in their 30s, or the earliest 38 or 39. But they all want to push it back to 39 or well into their 30s. And they just they want to spend more time having fun. We all know what that is. Basically just hoeing around and doing city girl things. And it just, I don't know, just started really turning me off. The way women spoke about children. You can tell how that manifests itself in the way they're willing to just get rid of their children, aka you know how that works. They just, I don't know, they have no problem killing their kids. They have no problem not having kids. It's just weird. It's weird. Because I grew up with a generation of women, at least when I was younger. I was like women's fantasy. Just children, kids. They talked about how many they wanted, how they wanted to space them out, what kind, I wanted this many boys, this many girls. Now it's is rare. It's very rare. And that's kind of scary.
I think it's backwards. I think it's the most inefficient, stupid thing we've ever come up with, and that in the future, people look back at the feminist experiment as a goofy time in history where we tried this wild experiment that failed miserably, and thank God it's over.
Wow. Okay. Well, Clementine Ford, I'm sure that you agree with every word of that, don't you?
Women are not happily married, and they find it very difficult to leave marriages, particularly because of the financial strain. So good for you. I do think that your historical understanding of feminism is extremely skewed. The idea that somehow we've only created a two-income household because feminism has tried to destroy the world is historically inaccurate, in large part. Well, firstly, you're also talking about feminism from your very and when I say limited, I'm not trying to insult you, but the limited perspective of feminism in America and the understanding of the economy in America. It's not taking into account the global reality of the fact that women have always worked, women still continue to work. Women, for the most part, produce the majority of the world's underpaid, if, you know, drastically underpaid labor.
How are they how are they fulfilling the world's drastically underpaid labor? I think she's talking about the whole, women make less than men, 90 cents on the dollar thing, which has been already debunked. So, of course, she's still pushing that narrative. Women are paid just as much as men, and we all know the statistics and data that bears that out and why it is. Women end up making less than men for a variety of reasons, but pushing the same old narratives, no matter how much it gets debunked, because that's the only thing they have to cling to.
When you talk about a two-income household being somehow instituted by feminism, you're failing to take into account that even in America, the kind of the glamorization of this golden age of marriage in the 1950s to the early 1960s, which the marriage historian Stephanie Coots calls the long decade, this coincided with an increase in women in the workplace. So it's not as if there was this golden age where women where married women, weren't working. For a lot of that, actually, the labor that is required to support the middle class has always been relied on for poor and disenfranchised women, largely in America, Black women.
All right. Look,
for a start.
Let
me just finish.
we all have to speed things up a little bit.
And the economy,
monologuing,
the downturn in the economy, the boom that happened after the Second World War was unsustainable. It was a wonderful time between around 1940 to 1970 for white working class men in particular. And then it began to
but I have a question
rapidly.
For you.
One of the reasons why women had to go into the workforce
just keeps going.
was because they had to help support their families.
Okay, I have a question for you, Clementine. It's a very simple question.
Good Lord.
I think it'll be an interesting question to ask you. What is a woman?
Good question.
I'm not going down the path of debating trans women with you.
I didn't mention trans women. I asked you what a woman is.
Okay, I'll tell you. I know that because this is your tactic. This is what you do. What is a woman? I'll tell you what.
Bro, you know what's crazy? How everybody's taken back by that question. Mostly feminists. Like, what is a woman? That should be like the most simple thing, especially being a woman. But everyone's afraid to answer. You could see how flustered she got. She started moving in her seat. Okay, how do I answer this? How do I answer this and not offend people? How do I answer this and not get canceled? How do I answer this and not lose my followers and my fan base? How do I answer the question to be inclusive of everyone who wants to identify as a female? Bro, it is crazy how such a simple question can get so many people flustered. Especially when it's actually a biological woman that's actually, going through that. It's so interesting to watch. I want to hear what she has to say.
It shouldn't be controversial.
I'll tell you what a woman is. A woman is someone who has at least at one point in her life. But you guys never want to talk about that.
Hang on.
What? A woman is someone who at least at one point in her life felt scared of a man. But men have also felt scared of other men many times in their lives. Does that then qualify them to be a woman? Bro, this is feminism. And it's insanity. The fact that we even validate their arguments is insane to me. Like, this lady is clearly just out of it.
You guys never want to talk about that.
So any man who's ever felt afraid of another man as a woman.
My point exactly.
That's not what I'm saying.
This is exactly why.
That is exactly what you
you're
just
wearing
said.
that shirt that says repeal. You should put the 19th under it. It's unbelievable. What are you talking about? A woman, anybody who has ever at one point been afraid of a man, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Do you have an actual argument here?
Wow.
Would you let me finish speaking, or do you
Yeah, how
just
long is it?
Out of all the things I thought she was going to say, I was not expecting it. I knew it was going to be something stupid. Like, because I know she was already trying to dodge the question or find a way to, appease everybody. So it's going to be something very vague, something very inclusive. But I wasn't expecting that. Like, that was even beyond the scope of what I imagined would come out of her mouth. That was not thought out at all.
It's going to take for you to finish. How?
Well, Clementine, look, with all due respect, we did do a bit of research into what you said about me in the past, so I think I'm entitled to give you...
So you already know what I think about that
Ooh,
question,
she
because I've written
talking
about
smack.
you asking that
Yes,
question.
you have. In fact, you said, like, all of
So
the
why
big...
would you ask it again when you know what my
I'm just
answer
getting
to
to
that
enlighten
is?
the audience who have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
or
Enlighten me.
Like all of the bigots, that's me apparently, currently jumping on the transphobic shuttle to Ding Dong Station. Morgan wants you to believe this is about fairness and equality, specifically fairness and equality in women's sports. That was exactly what it was about. And the problem is, Clementine, with all due respect to you, the reality is...
I doubt it. I doubt it's coming with due respect.
I'll treat you with perfect respect, but your inability to just simply state what a woman actually is, particularly given 2 weeks ago in the UK, the Supreme Court made it very clear that a woman is a biological female. That's it. It's a scientific fact. The fact that you can't answer that is part of the problem.
I'd like to know, the thing is that I would like to know why you, in particular, are so obsessed with this definition of what a woman is. Firstly,
Obsessed with a definition of what a woman is, because definitions are important, sweetheart. Like, what? we need definitions, otherwise everything's meaningless. But they're trying to be as inclusive as possible. But the more things that you let fall under a singular definition, the more meaningless the definition is. But of course, this push for a society where anything goes, no boundaries, no standards, no limitations, anything can be identified as anything, is a society without rules, without boundaries. And a society without boundaries and limitations is one that leads to chaos, because there needs to be order. And without, we need definitions create order, because it creates labels, and we can understand from there what things are and what things aren't. Once you deteriorate that, nothing has meaning anymore.
how does it impact you in any way? Secondly,
I have a 13-year-old daughter.
As a woman,
I have a 13-year-old daughter. And if my 13-year-old daughter decides she wants to compare, you ask me a question. You ask me a question. I'm going to answer you. Well, if you don't want an answer, don't ask me a question. Here's my answer to your question. I have a 13-year-old.
You asked me. You won't let
I have
me
a
answer.
13-year-old daughter. I have 7 nieces. Right, and some of them
you're
are
a real
very.
expert then on
So,
women,
if I
I
may
guess.
answer your question, some of them are very good at sport. Right, the idea that they would one day have their dream of potentially an Olympic place or a Team GB place, whatever it may be, a World Championship place, taken from them by a biological male, I think is completely outrageous. And by the way, so does most of the world now, which is why there's been a reversing, screeching U-turn on this particular subject. But I come back to my question to you. Your inability to say what a woman is, and yet here you are lecturing women on how they should behave as women, is completely perverse.
I think that reducing women specifically to your biological deciding of what you think a woman is.
It's called science. It's their chromosomes.
They don't believe in science. They believe in feelings. Science is only believed by the feminists, by liberals, if it coincides with their feelings. If it serves to further their beliefs, then they believe it, then let's trust the science. If science goes against their beliefs, then no, the science is wrong and the scientists are biased or whatever. They haven't run the right experiments. For example, like when it comes to abortion, the science clearly says what is a life, when does life begin? In certain things that the science is pushing, they're happy to use science in their arguments as long as it assists with their narrative, but they're not consistent. They cherry pick everything.
You have different chromosomes to me. It's not me saying that. I'm not writing.
I'm sure you're not the first.
I'm not writing the science.
I'm sure I'm not the first person I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you about intersex people. So how do you?
I'm not
what
talking
do you
about
do with
intersex
someone?
people.
No,
What do
no,
you-
no. This is
how
all
do you
wrong anyway.
define-
The intersex is not
How
a
do you
third
define-
sex. It's not a third sex. That's ridiculous. There is no third sex. There's two sexes, male, female, categorized scientifically. Intersex is not a third sex. Anybody can look that up in 5 seconds. Total lie. How did you not know that, by the way? How did you not know intersex is not a third sex?
I didn't say that intersex with a
You
third
did.
sex.
Then why'd you
Yeah,
bring it
that's
up?
exactly what the
People
implication
exist.
was.
And intersex
That's-
people have
So
people
what?
can have a mixture of chromosomes. So if you
Are you saying
present
they're a third
to the
sex
world,
or aren't you?
if you
Are you
present
saying
to the
they're-
world as
If they're not a third sex, then you have no argument here. Do you understand that? If what he's saying is
why
this
are
is
you
what is
so
objective.
obsessed
This
with
is
trans
what
women?
Yeah,
Why
I'll
are you
tell
so
you.
obsessed
I don't
with,
need
Why are you so
I
obsessed
don't
with
need I'm
defining
going to answer the
trans women?
question.
Every time they get backed into a corner with their argument, they say, why are you so obsessed? Why are you so obsessed with what a woman is? Why are you so obsessed with trans women? Why are you so obsessed with people's right to have abortions? Why are you so obsessed? Because your rights have an effect on us as well. Things that are passed in terms of trans people, it has an effect on women. He just used the example of sports, and we're not obsessed on the ridiculousness of feminism or liberal mindset, the laws they try to get pushed and passed. Anytime we have an opinion, they say we're obsessed. No, we just are not going to sit back and allow the world around us that affects us, by the way, to turn into this chaotic clown show, which it already has, and that's why they're dialing it back. Women are the one who pushed for trans women to be able to go into women getting, bones broken. They're losing their titles, losing out on opportunities. But see, their feelings took them too far, and they realized, oh wow, we didn't. Because women are not long-term thinkers. Most of them are not. They think in the moment because feelings, emotions are in the moment. They didn't think long-term how this was gonna, affect women. So now it's like losing out on, scholarships to men. But it was cool to not acknowledge them as men in the beginning. But once they start losing out on opportunities, now all of a sudden, let's rethink this. But, they don't really think things through.
For a start.
Yeah.
No, everyone has interrupted me. Let me speak for a moment.
You just asked a question.
Let me speak for a
Can't
moment.
keep asking questions. The truth about the problem is feminists in particular, I've noticed, feminists have latched on over the last few years to this idea that if anybody raised any concerns
They're
about
obsessed.
the way the trans lobby was trying to make things unequal, unfair, and unsafe for actual women, then they were immediately transphobic. I kept saying, I want trans people to have the exact... What was happening was women's rights were being eroded so that things were not fair, they weren't equal, and they weren't safe. And we saw absolute parodies of this in the Olympics, in the boxing ring, where people who have been banned from the World Championships because they apparently reported positive for male chromosomes were getting in the ring and beating women up in the ring. And so a woman's going to die if this was allowed to carry on. So now people have stopped it. Now sporting bodies around the world have stopped it. But you, Clementine, I say this respectfully, are still flying the flag for this bullshit. And you can't even say what a woman is. And I just find the fact that you want to lecture women like Rachel on how they should be as a woman is completely perverse, given you don't even know or don't want to say what an actual woman is.
I haven't said anything to Rachel.
Yeah, the conversation starts with the definition, and everything works down from there, but they don't even want to give that. They don't even want to go that far because they know their argument ends there once you get to the definition of things, because you can't classify it as both a man and a woman, because then the idea of what a woman is has no meaning. They try to give it like a biological and an emotional. Well, more like an identifier. There's biological women, and then there's women who self-ID as women. But that person is a man, so therefore the definition has no meaning.
I haven't said anything to Rachel. I've never met Rachel before in my life until today.
Well, you responded to
responded to what she
said about the
But
role of a woman.
Lecturing her. I wasn't lecturing
Well, it
her.
sounded like
I
you were
wasn't
lecturing to me.
her about
Let
the
me
role
bring
of
in
women
Emily.
at all.
Let me bring in Emily. She's been
I was
waiting.
actually telling her
Emily. She's been
about
waiting
the
patiently.
historical reality of economics in the US.
Let me bring in Emily.
But you wanted to divert it to talk about trans women because that's clearly
No, you banged on about trans women. I just said to you, if you don't know what a woman is, we've got a problem.
I would like to get back to that, by the way, because she's wrong.
No, I just
she's wrong about the economic history. She's the one looking at it through an economic prism that's extremely narrow. She's using feminist standpoint theory to try to tell us what the history of economics is. Yeah. She can't explain to us why through all of human history and all of Western history.
Let her finish, lady. Let her finish, lady. You talk plenty, lady.
Why through all of Western history we were able to raise a family like a janitor could raise a family with 4 children. We pushed women into the workforce in huge numbers, and we practically doubled the workforce overnight by pushing mothers and women into the workforce. This happened right alongside the creation of gender studies as an academic discipline, and now we are in a situation where we don't have a family economy.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you flood any industry with people, and the wages are going to go down because they don't have to pay as much. And they only allow so many. Like, the programs you have to get into are limited because they only want, one, you have to qualify. And 2, they don't want the market to be flooded with people who graduate with these degrees and then are unable to find a job because it's so saturated. So only a certain amount, each school is only allowed to have so many students in a class because they know, okay, this many people could potentially go into the market looking for a job and there will be jobs available for them. Now, women, men, everything's flooded the market. Wages are super low, and it takes 2 incomes. And even then, because I have friends who are, coupled up, and they live together with their girlfriends and boyfriends, and they are trying to make ends meet, and they have 2 incomes, and it's still tough. They're still talking about how they're living paycheck to paycheck, and, they gets to the end of the month or the end of the, after 2 weeks, and after they pay bills, they have no money left until next week, and they're talking about how broke they are. I'm like, bro, even now, with 2 incomes, 2 people working together, it's still tough, right? Because most people's like rent nowadays, just for like a two bedroom apartment, was like close to $2,000, if not more. I think I heard a study. Don't quote me on this, but I believe was saying that the data was out, that it was official that one income, that like nowhere in the U.S. can one income afford you to like pay for an apartment like by yourself, something like that. Like it was something along the lines of that. Like a certain person's income, like it just wasn't affordable for them to just, own their own apartment or just live on their own. And it was insane. I'll try to find the studies. I know I kind of like muddied that up, but the data was out on that. And I was like, this is wild. We flooded the market, and we acted the reasons why people also are unable to start families. If 2 people with 2 incomes working together are barely able to make ends meet, how are you going to add children in that who take time and money? So they're going to have less time to work because they have to raise kids, and they're going to take more money out, which they already don't have. Like, we have a huge problem. Like, I know feminism is pushing for women, to push back kids into their 30s, and that's having an effect on birth rates. Absolutely. But there's also an economic problem, right? People don't make enough for even themselves to even be thinking about children, right? So we have to, I can understand, like, there's definitely an aspect to pushing the age back well into your 30s because it gives you more time to be established, and it's unfortunate. But that's the way it has to be, unfortunately, because people just don't make enough money, and college is expensive. And if you want to go to college, a lot of times you got to take out student loans, go into debt. So now even after you get out of college, you don't even have enough money to start a family because you're paying off loans. It's like the whole system has like turned on itself to where only a small portion of people can actually afford it. And even those who do choose to have families are doing it from a position of like being financially just not really capable. They're just barely getting by. And most people don't want to do that. Most people don't want to suffer and, be in basically like borderline poverty between, working. You can't take a vacation, you can't take a day off because the bills are coming up and the kids need food and they need stuff for school. It's just too much. It's too much. American society is just become too much. I think that's also another reason why a lot of guys are going overseas, because if you can establish, even if you establish, right, in the West, let's say you start a YouTube channel that brings in $2,000 a month, and you go overseas, you can more than survive, have a nice apartment, and actually start a family in certain places like Eastern Asia, Philippines, I know Thailand. And I think that's why a lot of guys are just looking to escape this work trap. I think it's bigger than just women. It's just existence. I talk to people at work and they're just burnt out, man. There's just this like gloom of just feeling trapped over and over again. They have like no idea how to escape it. Working day after day after day. It's like, when does this end? When do you get to enjoy life? For me, man, I can't do that. I gotta find a way to escape. Life cannot be working every week, paycheck to paycheck. No. I will gladly go overseas. I will gladly go down in, the modern amenities and conveniences to actually enjoy life. And I think a lot of guys are coming to that same realization. But let's get back to the video. I know I kind of went off topic there, but, I felt that was necessary.
We have an individual income economy, which means most people can't raise a family without both parents working.
Okay, let me bring in Emily, who's been waiting very patiently. Emily, good to see you again. Now, you started a kind of MAGA civil war when you railed against women who want...
I don't know if she's a feminist or not. She looks like a feminist. Maybe an undercover feminist. I don't know. It's kind of hard to place this one right here. Undercover feminist, probably pretending to be conservative. That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting from her.
Want to be a trad wife. You posted a TikTok video which caused a lot of mayhem. Let's take a look at this.
I'm sorry, I hate to call out my own party, but the young girls on the right promoting this like trad wife bullshit. I just want to make sourdough for my husband. That's great. I'm all for it. I promote traditional values. I understand. I have been working since I was very young. I don't really plan on stopping working. I suggest you find a hobby that makes you money. But you guys, guess what? Guess what, baby girl? That lifestyle working out, a man, a provider, you just get to sit at home, bake bread every day, slim to none. I would say none that's going to work out for you, or quite literally anyone you know. You're actually setting yourself up for failure, because it could not be easier, if that's what you're going to pursue, to be trapped by a man. Okay?
There's the undercover feminism right there. Men are evil. Men will trap you. Be aware. Be cautious, because a man is going to abuse you financially, physically, and you're going to be trapped. So go out there, become a boss babe, make your own money so you don't need a man. Instilling fear in women. See, there we go. But in the beginning, she puts on the act like, oh no, I support traditionalism and traditional families. But then the undercover feminism comes out. Yep. There it is, trying to paint men as controlling, abusive men in relationships. And that's going to, of course, is going to push the feminist narrative that men are evil and you can't rely on a man because eventually they're going to turn on you and trap you. So I better go out there and make my own money. Undercover feminism, it always comes out eventually. I think it was the hair. I don't know. It's the hair and the eyes that just didn't sit right with me. They just gave off that feminist look.
Also, let's bring some other things to the, as well as physical.
Oh God, mentally. You mean just yapping. Just yapping. Women are the ones who want mental stimulation. Now, I'm not saying men want an idiot. I'm not saying men want a dummy, with no brain, just a bimbo with big tits. I'm not saying that. I definitely like an intelligent woman, but not because I want to have like debates with her or talk about politics or that kind of stuff. No, I just want to, if I want to discuss a particular topic with her, I can. I just want to know that I can, right? not necessarily that I want to do it. Those stuff I talk with my guy friends about. I don't talk with my girl about politics or philosophy or none of decision making skills, because I need to trust her to handle things at home. I need to trust her to handle stuff with the money, handle stuff with the kids. And for those reasons, she can't be an idiot. But to get a woman for like stimulating conversation, yeah, from time to time, but I'm not looking for you know, a freaking college professor intellect. That's not necessary. It's not necessary. Just don't be stupid. Know how to make good decisions. Use logic, and we're good.
Okay? But I'm just like, please, you guys are too young to be promoting this. And also, by the way, it's cringe. You guys are cringe, okay?
Now, Emily, are you standing proudly by that TikTok?
Thank you guys for laughing. That is supposed to be the point of a lot of my videos. I don't take things too seriously. I usually say things like this and don't think anything of it. I do want to point out in the video, I did start it by being like, look, I love stay-at-home moms. I support them. I promote conservative values. I think the issue with the video...
Yeah, of course you're going to say that, because you want to sell yourself as the traditional woman so you can like market yourself to men in a way that, you know, would be appealing. But the reality is, you got to really listen to what they're saying, right? Because women always try to put the best parts first. So they try to sell themselves as either not a hoe, I'm not a hoe, but, and then goes on to advocate for hoe behavior. I'm a traditional conservative woman, but proceeds to use feminist talking points to frame men as controlling and manipulative in relationships. You got to listen to the entire thing, because they're always going to present themselves in the best light when they first start speaking. So you really got to follow through, listen to what they say, but most importantly, look at their actions. Now, we don't know her, so we can't really look at her actions. We can definitely listen to the entirety of what she says and really dive deep and be very careful.
Video is a lot of people just took the video and then gave their own meaning. The group I was specifically bashing on was the young girls in their 20s that promote like traditional lifestyles online that we all know in the right-wing community absolutely do not live these lifestyles. And it's just a bit over the top. It's kind of support the girls pretending to do it, I guess, if that kind of makes sense.
I'm not sure it does. Andrew, does it make sense to you?
Well, I mean, she's right in a sense that there's a lot of LARPing that goes on the right with the supposed traditional movement, which she's absolutely right, isn't living the traditional lifestyle. However, it's still a counterintuitive message to put out there that, oh, you're going to be trapped by your husband and his income. It's like, good. Don't you want to be in a relationship with your husband and have access to his income? Like, what's the problem here? That would be the values you're trying to move towards, right? So like, ultimately, it's a contradicting message. I understand why you got a bunch of garbage for it. It is a good idea, I think, to point out the LARP, a good idea to point out how much faux traditionalism is on the right, because it's a way for them to peddle sex, and that's exactly what they're doing. You see them in skimpy outfits doing exactly that. Totally fair. But on the other hand, you absolutely should not be putting out a message which ridicules women for wanting to be stay-at-home moms and actually live some type of lifestyle which is conducive to their children and family. That's silly.
Let's play at this stage the clip.
Yeah, I mean, also trapped is just the wrong word to use.
Yeah, it absolutely pushes the feminist agenda. Absolutely. But I will agree with Andrew on a certain point. There are a lot of quote-unquote conservative trad wife women that are... You can tell that it's just an act. You can tell they know that putting out those videos are going to get views, and it's going to get hate, which is going to get them more views. And it's like, bro, we know you're not like that on a daily basis. There's just more undercover feminists just record themselves doing the activities of traditional women. But it's like, even a modern day traditional man wouldn't even care for most of the stuff they're doing. Like, I was seeing videos of women like making candy by hand, like from scratch, making cereal from scratch, making this, like, bro, like, that's so not necessary. Like, just because we want you to be traditional does not mean you have to like go back to like churning butter or anything like that. Just embody the traditional values in a modern society. Just be a stay-at-home mom. Well, you don't have to be a stay-at-home mom to be traditional, but just be a good mother, be a good wife, be loyal, follow your man's lead, be submissive, take care of the kids, push a traditional gender roles, teach your kids in the traditional sense, right? And that's all we want. That's it. Like, we don't need this, like, going back to like the 1950s or nothing like that, man. You don't need to be doing all this extreme stuff, but they know it's going to get attention because weird, of course, in 2025, but those are the videos they put out. So yeah, that is cringe. That's weird. Just be a good wife. Just be a good wife and a good mother. All right. And don't show your ass on the internet. Don't be, dressing provocative. Follow your husband's lead. Boom. Perfect. You've nailed being a traditional woman. But no, they want to instead make videos about knitting and making candy from scratch.
But
Yeah.
overall, my message I stand by.
Okay, I want to play, because I think it fits in well here, the Caroline Levitt clip. This is where she's working with her baby. We'll just show the picture of her working at the White House with her baby in one hand and helping to run the country with the other. Now, when I first saw that picture, I thought, wow, that's a pretty extraordinary, powerful image of a young woman who's very young to be doing the incredibly important job she does. She does it, I think, extraordinarily well. And she's a mother, and she's feeding her son whilst doing this at the same time. Rated it, some people hated it. What did you think about it?
Well, I actually tweeted about this too, because although I'm a big fan of Caroline as a person, I think she's great, she's smart, she's lovely. I don't understand this compulsion, especially in the Trump administration, but on the right in general, where we're supposed to be conservatives, where we are pushing mothers to work. Trump has been a huge proponent of hiring women, number one, what are we conserving? If we're not conserving the traditional family and traditional gender roles and motherhood in the middle of a birth rate crisis, what are we conserving as conservatives? Just like lower taxes? I mean, this should be a core issue for us on the right to say, no, motherhood is not a part-time gig that you do on the side. You don't, ship your baby off to daycare where they're spending 3 times as much time with a low-wage daycare worker as they are with mom while you go and do your career. There's plenty of life to live after raising kids. I think after you've done that, if you want to venture out and do a few more things, once you have the empty nest, I think that's okay. But pushing mothers to work it's one of the key things that's tearing apart the fabric of society, because we're not raising our own children. We're not passing down our values to them. We're sending them to daycare and we're sending them to state-run schools, and that's who they're being raised by.
That's true. The mother do that as well, but it goes from God to the father to the mother to the children. So the father gets the values from God. He passes that on to the wife. The wife then takes that and gives it to the children. But if the mother isn't there, then that breaks the chain. And now you have some woman at daycare or some woman at in public schools who then fill the role of the mother to pass down whatever mindset or, belief system that they have to your child. So the baton, the way my parents described it to me is that there's a baton that needs to be passed, right? Every generation, had this traditional value package, and they ran that race through life. And every time they got to the end, when they had children, they passed it on to them. And they just kept passing it on. How to be a good father, how to be a good wife. This was passed on to both men and women. Embody the masculine traits necessary, how to embody the feminine traits necessary. How to be, everything that is necessary to be a full, well-rounded man and woman and raise up the next generation was passed on. And then somewhere along the lines, once we broke down families, the baton was dropped. And so this traditional package that was passed down failed to reach the next generation. There was a generation of started to break up families. So now we have generations of men and women who don't know how to be men, don't know how to be masculine, don't know how to lead, don't know how to talk to women, don't know how to set boundaries. You have women who don't know how to be women, don't know how to be traditional, don't know how to be feminine, right? Don't even know how to submit to a man, don't even know what a man wants. That was part of the package. That was part of the baton that was supposed to be passed down, right? Back in the day, mothers used to tell their daughters, hey, get in the kitchen because you need to learn how to cook, because when you get a husband, he's going to want XYZ. Now, if you were to say anything like that, that'd be viewed as misogynistic. To tell your daughter she needs to do this because of a man, because in order to get a man. To sell a woman that there are any requirements of her, or that she should learn skill sets or have do anything in order to get a man, is viewed as misogynistic. Now, the baton was dropped. The generation now knows very little of what it takes to be a strong masculine man, and the women be a feminine woman. And the women of the past were not weak, docile fools. They were very wise. Oh my gosh, the generation of wise women, gone. I am lucky enough to have a mother who still has that. I think I probably have one of the last ones. Wise women. To like one of the reasons why I'm so logical and why I have this channel, I think the way that I do, is because of my mother. I know it's kind of crazy because in society we talk about, how delusional women are and how, emotional they are. But I was raised by a very logical, very grounded, very, sharp, intelligent woman. My mother was a teacher, high school, taught middle school, and taught elementary school students. So my grandparents were both pastors. My parents are also in ministry. So I was raised very traditional. But the point that I'm making is that it's funny because I was unaware of how emotional and illogical women were because of the woman I was raised by. Like, I would see sitcoms and stuff, and they always paint the woman out to be like foolish, and not really foolish. I would say they point her out to be very hard to understand, very contradicting. She'll say one thing, but then she means this, just emotionally erratic and unstable. And the guys would always have the sentiment of, well, that's women. You can't understand them. They're so confusing. And I was like, I didn't grow up seeing that. The women I was raised by were very logical, very wise, and very rational. So watching these sitcoms, it didn't reflect the women in my life. It wasn't until I started dating that I began to see what they were showing reflected in realize, wow, my mother is actually far more rare than I realized. But yeah, but they didn't used to be that way. The reason why my mother isn't that way is because the baton of traditionalism was passed on to her. And my parents made sure to pass that on to me. And I'm going to make sure not to drop that because it's on us. It's on every generation to take the baton and make sure that we pass it on to our kids. We can't just, hope that they figure it out and have a dedicated effort to instill these values in our children. And how are we going to do that if we're all working? If the man's working, because women want the man to work, right? Go out there and make money. They expect the man to make money, and a lot of money now. So if he's out there doing his job, well, who's going to be home with the kids to instill these values? You want to throw them out in daycare so you can go back to your office job. The baton is guaranteed to be dropped if you do that. Someone has to be home with the kids to teach them, to guide them, to steer them away because society is pushing to corrupt your children with even the children's shows now aren't safe. They're trying to push their little agendas with, transgender this and, you can be a girl when you're a boy, you can be a boy when you're a girl, and all this other nonsense in the children's shows. So if you're not there, you turn on the show for your kids, or some woman at daycare puts on the show to keep your kids, occupied while she goes off and texts on her phone. You don't know what kind of information is being downloaded, but if you were at home with the kids, you could hear that or see the narrative that they're pushing and say, whoa, boop, change the channel, take your kids to the side and say, hey, listen, this is what society is going to tell you, but here's what mom is going to tell you right quick. Here is how you really need to view things. This is wrong. You're a girl. You can't be a boy. You're always going to be a girl, right? Society's going to tell you this, but here's the truth. You can act as a deterrent, act as a boundary for the chaotic insanity that society is trying to instill into your children. But if you're at your office job, there's no hope. your kids are just going to get the feminist download, and that's it. Let's get back to the video, though.
All right, Clementine, your response to that?
Do you work, Rachel?
No.
You don't make any money from your podcasting?
I'm
Form of paid employment?
Yes. First of all, my children are grown up now. I'm 44 years old, so I had my first one at 20. They're grown up. They're moved out.
Yeah.
But I work still very, very part-time, maybe a couple hours a week at most.
But do you have
Because my primary responsibility is to my husband.
But you've got 5 children, right? Is that correct? And they're all grown up and all moved out, or you've still got some young children?
The youngest one. The youngest
we
ones
still have
are
a couple
teenagers.
at home. And by the way, you're just making an argument from hypocrisy.
So can I just
Point
ask
out the
you?
hypocrisy.
Can I just ask you? Do you find, even with the small amount of part-time work that you do, which you do get paid for, do you find satisfaction from that? Do you get satisfaction from that work?
It's not the money, because Andrew makes far more than I make. I make a very, very tiny amount of money off of, my book, and a couple of appearances here and there might sell a few books. It's practically nothing. If I was doing it for the money, it'd be a waste of even the couple of hours. But what I would say to that is, we're not against women doing other things. So if you look at the Bible and the Proverbs 31 woman, she does a lot of things. She's out buying land. She's making decisions. She's doing all kinds of things. The difference is that she's doing them under the purview of the guidance and leadership of her husband and for her family, not for a corporation, not for her own glory, not for her own ambition.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Women want to do it for their own glory. They don't want to serve a greater purpose, whether that be religion and God's purpose or for the sake. They want their own glory, and that's it. And that's where this idea of the power couple came from, right? This idea that a man should be fully successful and the woman should be fully successful from like a career sense, a monetary sense, and then those two come together and you have a power couple. That's not a power couple. That's a lot of times a very useless pairing. Most of the times those don't even work out because they're both doing the same thing and the other roles are being neglected. I would say Andrew and Rachel are the perfect power couple. They're on the same page, they have the same vision, but they're tackling it from different angles. And he's still fulfilling his masculine role, she's fulfilling her feminine role, and they're both happy with that dynamic. And on top of that, there are harmful things, harmful mindsets in society. The way they work together, the way they're just like so just connected, I just love that. That, to me, is the perfect example of a power couple. And I'm not to say that your wife or your girl has to be like, doing the exact same thing you do or, on social media doing that kind of stuff that Rachel does. But I do believe a power couple is in sync with the same vision. And my parents are that way. I grew up seeing parents that were like totally on the same page with everything that they do. My dad says, we're doing this, we're going in this direction. My mom's on it, getting a game plan of how they can get that done most effectively, most cost efficiently. It's never a pushback. It's never, no, let's go in this direction. It's okay. You set the direction, you tell us what we're going to do, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to facilitate a game plan to make that happen. And I can see that with them. And I think that's why they get so much respect on the internet as couples, because they're just so in sync. But yeah, you can't do that if the woman views herself like separate from the man. Her goals, her ambitions, her view for the future, her purpose is completely detached from the family, completely detached from the man and his direction. So if you're doing your own thing and the man says, hey, I need to take the family in this direction because here's what God has told me we need to do, but your whole thing that you think is your purpose or what you want to do with your career is going off in a whole different, woman needs to be in alignment with the husband. But modern women don't want to do that because they want to pursue careers for their own glory.
A lot of that depends on whether or not you have faith in the Bible, which obviously not everyone does. But the reason I asked you those questions wasn't because I was trying to set you up or anything like that. It doesn't surprise me that you would get some satisfaction to me, the point of the question wasn't about the money. It's about the work. It's about the passion that you put into it. And the reason I asked was because a multi-year study done by Adrienne Freck and Sarah Damasque, found that the mental health of women who worked full-time after the birth of their first child was significantly higher than those who didn't have paid work at all. So I think that taking into account the fact that for a lot of women, and this is also what Betty Friedan found when she wrote The Feminine Mystique, that, and Stephanie Coontz backed this up as well in her book, The Way We Never Were, which is a history of a...
These all sound like feminists. These all sound like feminists. I want the data, but I want the data from someone who is like completely neutral or is on the other side, because of course feminists are going to cherry pick this study, and it might not even be peer reviewed, might be a tiny sample size. We don't know. I don't trust all these feminist books at all. They're absolutely pushing a narrative, so I'm not even going to take that seriously.
But are you married, Clementine? I've no idea about your situation, but are you married? Do you have kids? What's your deal?
I've got a kid. I'm not married.
Okay, but you have a...
I'm a single mother.
Bruh. Who was surprised? Who was surprised by that? Of course she's not married. Now, she doesn't sound as insufferable as other feminists do, but I'm sure she is, though. I'm sure she is. She doesn't sound like it. Most feminists, man, you can just hear their voice, and it's like, how could any man stay in the same house as you and not throw himself out the window? But her voice is not as annoying. Just the way she speaks is a little bit annoying. And her mindset, of course, is going to lead to her being a single mother. The feminist mindset always does, because you don't need a man. You can do it by yourself. Men are just sperm donors from their perspective.
Okay.
And I have a very excellent relationship with my son's father.
I don't buy it for a second.
We co-parent together very well, but we're not married. We don't live together. I certainly have found, since having a child, I mean, I've always worked anyway, but I've been working since I was 13 years old, but I've always found that work for me is very satisfying. And this, what I'm saying is that these are the findings of multiple historians
who are only investigating this from a feminist point of view. They're already sold on the ideology, and what they do is they cherry pick data.
Is a world-renowned historian. She's not specifically a feminist. She's a world-renowned historian, and these were her findings as well. So you cannot deny the reality. If when you look at the facts of it, you cannot deny the reality.
Anything else? We're not saying women can never leave the house. We're not saying you can't have other things in your life that you find fulfilling.
You're suggesting that the primary role for a woman, and that, you know, in your faith, I'm not going to discredit that, but your faith in God says that this is what you believe God says, that she should be devoted to her husband, she should be devoted to her children. The facts do not back that up. The facts of familial satisfaction don't back that up.
Well, hang on. Okay, let me jump in. Hang on.
Yes, they do.
Hang on.
Bro. I, of course, work with a lot of women. And, well, not as much women, because my job is primarily male dominated, which I prefer, because man, I would not want to work with a bunch of women. But the women who I do work with, I would say they tend to lean a little bit more to their masculine because of the field. And I don't want to give away what I do for work or where I work, because people are crazy on the internet. There's a lot of feminists out there who would love to do some crazy stuff, so I got to keep that private, at least for now. But the women I work with, man, they do the most, which is why another thing that goes into them making less, bro, they call out as much as they can without getting fired. They don't enjoy working. They're always tired. And it's not just women. Men are the same way. We're just built to more, handle it. But this idea that women are enjoying their job, they enjoy working. It's like, no, they don't. They pull themselves out of bed every morning wishing that they had enough money so they could just not go to work. This is insane. They're not finding fulfillment. There's like a small portion of women who get to do exactly what they want in a cush little office and get a bunch of money for doing like a useless job. Those women are probably happy with their job, and I could see that small demographic being happy working, but the woman has to wake up and go to CVS is not happy. How many videos I've seen on TikTok with nurses complaining about their job? They people who work regular jobs are not happy, bro. They're not happy doing this idea that, oh my gosh, a woman, without a job is just miserable. I found it to be the opposite. I can't remember the last time I found a woman who does what she does and is super happy to do it. Work on Monday, they hate it. Everybody hates it. Nobody likes working. Very few people enjoy working because for most people, work is just a necessary evil. Just necessary to survive. You don't enjoy it, you just gotta do it. But feminism sells women on this idea that fulfillment will come from working. Work was never about fulfillment, not really, right? Majority of work was just survival. From the beginning of time, just survival. I have to do this crappy job, and the jobs were even crappier back then, especially for men. Working in the mines, working in the factories, horrible working conditions. A lot of them died, got immensely injured in horrible ways. It was just about survival and providing for a family, and you have to do whatever crappy job you have to do to make it happen. It wasn't until, life got easier with technology, air conditioning, and, reliable transportation that and then there was like a shift where life, became more industrial, and now people can afford to like do more jobs that aren't necessarily important to the society. So now you can potentially find a job that you can do that's enjoyable, but there's still very few of them, right? Most people, I believe I saw a poll where it said most of Gen Z would like to be like an influencer. That's like a prime example of a job that people are trying to do because they're trying to find something that's enjoyable. The truth is, very few people are going to be able to be an influencer and generate enough income to survive off of that. So most of them are going to have to be doing regular jobs, janitor, customer service, working at a supermarket, working at a warehouse, and those people, the average person, does not enjoy their job, both men and women. So it just always confused me where they're finding this pleasure. Where are they getting this data that women are finding so much pleasure in it? It's just not. Work is not pleasurable, bro. I believe like when you're aligned in your purpose, right? When you find God and you find your purpose, then life starts to, have more meaning. But work for the sake of $1 and you think that's fulfilling? Bro, no, it is not. Not at all.
Hang on, sorry, Clementine. I think you've chosen the wrong moment to say that. You've clearly got a woman here on the panel where the facts completely back that up. She's had a lot of kids. She's very happily married.
She loves that there would be exceptions to the rule, but statistically speaking,
you've just literally got one sitting there in front of you.
That's completely untrue, though. For her to say that this one study, that this one survey is going to tell us something. First of all, we have two.
It was a multi-year study.
Ma'am, let me ask you, Clementine. Let me ask Clementine. When you were you married or not? I can't remember what you said. Were you married?
No, I've never been married.
Okay, but when you were with your partner before
It
was a struggle because even in lots of supposedly egalitarian households, again, the data backs up that even women who make more money than their partners or their spouses tend to do more unpaid domestic labor.
Who did most of the domestic chores?
In my house?
Yeah.
Me.
You did?
Me.
Okay, and Rachel, who does most of them in yours?
That's the reality for
hang on.
For most
Rachel,
women,
who does the domestic stuff in your house, Rachel?
I do absolutely all of it, and the thing I want to say to
Clementine, very similar. It seems to me you're both.
I care far less about women's fulfillment in careers than I care about children and how they're being raised, and I want her to justify to me why we should be paying low-wage daycare workers to raise our children rather than doing it ourselves. How does it make sense to take your duty of motherhood and simply put it on a different random woman? How does that system make sense?
Because there is no duty. They don't see kids or the role of being a mother as a duty. It's just an accessory to their life. It's just an accessory. It's something they didn't want to miss out on or something that happened accidentally. It's one of the two. Either something that they didn't want to miss out on, so let me just do this so that I won't have to look back and regret not being able to, or something that happened accidentally, and they have this goal, that their direction they're going in for this thing they want to fulfill, and the kids just are kind of along for the ride there. There's no greater goal, there's no greater purpose, there's no anything greater than themselves that they're doing. So to send the kids off it's no big deal from their perspective. There's no duty on their end to fulfill a role, because she's not even religious. She's not religious at all. Her own happiness and her own fulfillment.
Why should we tell women to do that?
If you would like to stay at home and raise your children, that's
You're not answering
totally
my
fine.
You're not answering the question.
My question is,
Answer
how
the
is
question.
it good for children
it's a question
for
of
them
choice.
to be raised by
It's a question of choice.
No, it's not
It's
a question
actually
of
not
choice.
worse.
No.
It's not worse.
It's not a question of choice. It's a question of what's most optimal for society, for men, women, society, also children. What's most optimal? But see, they just put themselves over everything. Choice. Okay, yeah, but what about the kids? Because the kids are just an accessory.
Why is it
Children
better outcomes?
to be
Why
raised
is
by
it
working
better?
mothers. That's
Why is it
also
better?
the facts back
Why?
that up. There is no
No, they
study that
don't.
suggests
There's
that women
no
who
facts.
work
Listen, lady,
raise
there are
children
no
who are
facts
less happy.
on
That is
there
not
are
true.
no facts on planet Earth that back up that single mother households have better outcomes. That's one. Two,
Or that raising
outsourcing
kids
your
in daycare
specifically
is better
hang on,
for
hang on,
them.
hang on. Let me
Specifically
finish,
mentioned
lady,
single mothers.
lady,
That's
lady.
you bringing
Let me
your
lady.
that's you bringing your
Lady, if you
judgment in.
outsource the raising of your children, you're already making yourself a single mother, just so you know. Here's what's going on. Just so that you understand.
Are
Outsourcing
you, are you a single
let
father
me
because
finish,
your
lady,
wife
lady,
raises your
let me
children
finish.
for you?
Lady, let
Excuse me, don't
finish.
call me lady.
Can
Don't
you
call
let me
me
finish?
lady.
Can
I have a
anybody
name.
finish?
Lady, that's funny. That definitely gets under their skin. Andrew does call them lady a lot. Lady, it's funny. They definitely don't like that. It triggers the feminist in them.
Finish a point? Can anybody finish a point? Or
I don't know.
only
Do you have a point?
Are
You don't
only
seem to
you
be
allowed
making
to? I'm
one.
trying to make one. So
You don't
anyway,
seem
if
to
you
be making a
outsource-
point, Andrew.
If you outsource your children's raising to strangers, answer Rachel's question and tell her how that makes more sense than having the child raised by their own biological mother. Actually answer.
Well, in my case, it makes more sense because I need to make money to pay my bills to raise my child.
Well, if you had a husband in the home, then he could go make money and you could stay home and help raise the kids. Or in the very least, you could work part-time so you could still contribute financially, but he, could be able to handle the majority of the load, and then you have more time to raise the kids and also tend to your husband. And also, so that he can go out there and work even harder. And you guys can try to start like a business together in the free time that you have and the free time that he has. That way you can move him away slowly but surely out of, working so hard. Nothing ever gets done. Nothing ever gets accomplished. And the men are out here trying to do their own thing. Women are out here trying to do their own thing. She's not worried about the kid's outcome. She's only worried about her own outcome. That's why she can't answer the question. Because it's not about what's most optimal for the kid. The only question she has in her head is what's most optimal for her happiness, her life, which is why she shouldn't have had kids in the first place. Because once the kids come into play, it's not about your happiness. But women see kids as an accessory to their happiness. That's not how that works.
It's
But in many other
counterintuitive.
families, it makes...
What if you
in many
depended
other
on your
families, it
husband's
makes-
income?
Do you see the problem of
Now
how we
it's my
ended up
turn
here?
to finish. Now it's my turn to finish. But actually, again, if you knew what you were talking about, if you actually read anything about the data on these things, rather than just reaching into your gut for a feeling that feels
Let's
true
go
to
over the
you.
data. Show me the data that shows that if you outsource
The data
childcare,
shows
it's
us-
If there
better.
was
a father
The
in the
data
household,
shows
you
us-
wouldn't
Let me
have
bring
that
Emily
issue.
in,
There
because
is
Emily's
no-
been, again,
there is
Emily's
no-
been, hang
there
on.
is no statistical data to support the fact that children raised by mothers who work are less happy than children raised by
Yes,
mothers who
there
stay at
is.
home.
There's tons
I
of
would
data.
never try and stop Rachel,
There's so
your wife,
much
from staying at home to raise
overwhelming
your
data.
children. That's her
There-
choice.
Well,
That's
hey,
her choice
listen,
to do that.
there is
But
so much
it's not true that
overwhelming
that's because
data.
that's her choice.
All right,
that
let me-
that
let me
means
bring
same
Emily
for
in,
all other
lady.
women.
Let me bring Emily
Just
in.
filibuster.
Piers knows that.
Emily was trying to say
Piers,
something.
you don't want your daughters and your nieces being forced to stay at home to raise families.
I don't want-
You
There is-
don't want
I
that.
don't want-
You
There's
them to have choice.
I
overwhelming
don't want my
evidence
kids
that
to
the
be forced to
outcome
do
for
anything.
No one's trying to force women to stay home and raise families, right? We're not trying to take away their opportunities or take away their ability and like put laws in place where now women can't work. You must be reliant on a man. No. All we're trying to do is to use the same tactic that feminism has done for decades. All we're trying to do is use advertising the same way feminism has used advertising to push women out of the family, to push them into the workplace. We're going to use the same advertising to do the opposite. So the choice is always going to be still there. The same way women's ability to work was always on the table. But society was always, the kind of material that was pushed towards family. The ideologies, the mindset, everything was pushing towards family. So even though the option was on the table, most women didn't want to take it. Now, we pushed in the opposite direction. So now everybody all the women want to go work and, neglect families until well into their 30s. It's like, you're only going to get like maybe one kid out of that, if any, if they even find a guy, because now they're less attractive. There's a whole thing that happens when they, downstream effect of doing that. But the point is, it's like, we need to start advertising and putting out material that pushes traditional households. But they don't want to do that because they try to use the argument that we're trying to take away women's choice. No, we're just trying to push them in the other direction with media, with advertising, with, with influencers, all that stuff. We can do it. If you can do it, we should be able to do it too. And honestly, that would have much better outcomes for the country than trying to split women up from the family and tell them that they don't need men.
No, Emily.
I'm going to argue data with either of you guys. I'm sure you know more than me, but I can say that my father is my hero and the most important person in my life. And if I didn't have him and he wasn't in the household, I don't know where I would be today. And my girlfriends who were raised without fathers in the household, I do see them struggle in different ways when it comes to dating and all these different things. And it's funny because it's like they do make a point. Like if there was a father in the household supporting you, I think a lot of these issues wouldn't be what they are. So I think there's points to both of these things.
Okay, let me ask Andrew. Andrew.
But supporting in what way?
Is your name Andrew? Anyway, go ahead, Piers.
Yeah, well, Andrew, I was going to ask Andrew, when Rachel said that she does all domestic chores, is there anything you do? I mean, do you put the bins out? Do do the trash out? I mean, what do you do anything?
I don't do shit. That's what I got a wife
Maybe
for.
a little yard work.
But not only that.
If something breaks or there's yard work, that's about it.
Yeah, cars need repair, something like that. But I'm not going to do household chores. That's what I got married for. I don't want to do household chores. Not only that, on top of that, let's just point a couple things out. So the absent parent household, they're going to have way better outcomes. And if they have a present mother who's more present with them, they're going to have way better outcomes. Every single data point backs this up. The outsourcing of children to public school, especially for 8 hours a day, is absurd. Stop. Let me finish the point. Let me finish the point, and then you can respond. Let me finish the point.
I've got to say, Clementine, as someone who doesn't like...
It was hard to make out what she's... How are you a present mother if you're at work? You're present if you're there. That's what present means. It's literally baked into the definition of the word. Present means you are there in person. You're present. If you're out of the house, in your office, typing up emails, you're not present. Your child's at daycare. So yes, the assumption is correct. A woman who's at work can't be a present mother. It's literally
that you won't let me finish the point.
I got a text message from your producer, Piers, telling me to interrupt if I disagreed with anyone.
Yeah.
So take it up with them.
No, but I think that what's changed since that text message is you've made a point of objecting to being interrupted. So I don't think you can do that.
And yet I keep
and
being
then keep
interrupted, Piers, so that's just the state of play
why don't you practice what you preach and don't interrupt Andrew when he's trying to finish his point?
Yeah, so look, I've just finished the point.
Would he make a point? He hasn't made one yet.
Yeah, I just did. I made multiple points. All the data points are against
made
against
the
you on
point
this.
that he doesn't respect his
You're
wife
still not,
because he doesn't.
lady.
He
You still
married a
can't
wife
stop
because
talking.
he didn't want to do anything
can't
for
stop
himself.
talking, lady.
Oh, he doesn't respect his wife because he didn't want to do household chores. So does a woman not respect her husband because she married him because she doesn't want to have to work? Because she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom? Is she disrespecting him by marrying him for, and that being one of her reasons? No. No, that's not disrespect. That's completely valid. And I would say that that's more of a burden to put all the financial burden on a man than it is for a man to say, I don't want to do house chores. So, no, it's not disrespectful.
This is why it should say the 19th under that shirt. You cannot even be quiet long enough to hear a counterpoint. Here's the counterpoints. The data you're citing, you don't have any when it comes to outcomes for children, when it comes to outsourcing, sending your kids.
Which data are you
Would
citing?
you stop so that I can finish the question?
No, tell me.
I'm trying to at least
cite the
finish the
data.
question. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. One more time. All data points to the fact that if you outsource the raising of your children,
you can't
especially
just
when they're
stand there
young,
and say all data. You actually have to cite it.
Cite any data that shows.
Say that.
Cite any data ever that shows that you outsourcing the care of your child is good for the child. Any. Yeah, that's right.
Kuntz.
Nothing. You got Stephanie Kuntz doesn't say that. You're lying through your teeth.
Do you even know who Stephanie Kuntz is?
Yes. You mean the feminist writer?
Who Stephanie Kuntz is.
The feminist writer.
You don't. You clearly don't even know what you're talking about. I
don't.
I can tell you.
You're not even interested. You're not even interested enough in the topic.
I'm sorry.
You're not even interested enough to respect
I'm sorry. Who's
the topic
Stephanie
enough.
Kuntz? Let's make sure we got it right. Who's Stephanie Kuntz?
Stephanie Kuntz is an historian.
Isn't a feminist, right? Isn't a feminist? I just want to make sure we're clear.
I have no idea if she's a feminist or not. I know that she's an historian.
Well, then why would you try to make a refutation about what I'm saying? Clearly, you don't know enough about the topic. Right? It's silly.
I'm
only allowed to.
I have some data for her if she wants it.
I'm not allowed to reference historians. Is that we're only? So
if you have a historian who's also a feminist,
you're clearly only allowed to reference.
If you have a historian who's also a feminist, they're biased, right?
Let me ask you, Clementine. Clementine, let me ask you.
Why are you so obsessed with whether or not she's a feminist?
Clementine, let me ask you a question.
She's a historian.
Because it would promote bias.
Because it would be biased.
Let me try and ask a question here. Clementine, do you hate men?
Oh boy.
No, of course I don't hate men. What an absurd, reductive question.
Well,
I don't know if that's reductive, man. A lot of these feminists hate men. I mean, I don't know if you guys have taken the going down the rabbit hole of feminist TikTok and gone to the comment section. Oh boy, it is enemy territory. Oh yes. The feminists absolutely hate men, man. And it's crazy because, you hear it, feminists hate men. But you don't see it until you go into the comment section. I mean, you see it. They do say it, podcasts, and they're just extremely bold in their views. But, man, the best place to see people's true feelings is in the comment section. And when you go into feminist TikTok comment sections, it is frightening. It is frightening how much just concentrated hate and disdain they have for men. Like, they will say the most vile things. And it's funny because if men ever said the equivalent, their channels would be shut down immediately. And yet, all the comments, none of them are blocked, none of them are banned, none of them have been taken down due to hate speech. They're just up there. So if you can stomach it, guys, take a little walk down and go into the feminist TikTok videos. Question, does she hate men? I would not be surprised if she did. I would not be surprised.
Why did you tweet?
Why did you think that was
hang on, because I'm about to follow up.
They hate you.
Why in 2020 did you tweet the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough?
I tweeted that in 2020 as a misguided tweet, but it was actually much of a part of a longer
misguided tweet
thread.
Wow, there goes the feminist agenda uncovered. These women, let that be a lesson, bro. These women who claim to care about men, because with feminists, they try to say that they care about men too, they care about men's rights too, and how men are doing. They don't. They hate men. Her statement, the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough. Are you serious? And I'm supposed to believe that you have my best interest at heart? Thing out of her mouth when it comes to her caring about men. No wonder she doesn't have a man in her life, bro. Like, what? That's disgusting. And bro, can you imagine if a guy said that? Can you imagine if a guy said that about women? It's insane. I believe, and you know what? If a comment like that was posted on TikTok, it would be. But go into the female feminist comment section, you'll see some of the most vile things, and they're just up there. Never flagged for hate speech. Wow. Her true colors, her true intentions are finally showing. Hates men.
Don't hate men.
I apologize for it, Piers.
You thought a
apologize
deadly
for it at the
pandemic
time.
virus wasn't killing men fast enough.
Apologize to men again. Do it again. You haven't apologized to me for saying that you want me to die from the coronavirus.
Well,
Now
I would
say
have
you're
to
sorry.
consider you a man to apologize you for that,
Say you're
Andrew.
sorry.
Oh.
You don't even know what a woman is. How
Why
you
would
know
I
what a man is?
apologize
You know what
to
else?
you? I don't
Apologize.
consider you a man.
Andrew,
Say
I would
you're
like for her
sorry.
to apologize to me because I do
hilarious.
not appreciate her saying that my own husband does not respect me. Of course he respects me. He respects me as a mother and as a wife. He treats me like gold. Who the hell are you to tell me if he respects me or not?
Yeah, because, you know, he doesn't respect you because he doesn't want to do household chores. He doesn't respect you because you're a stay-at-home mom and you raise the kids and you cook and you clean. That's what that means in their book. Unless you're a strong, independent woman, your husband doesn't respect you, which is completely false. Completely false. So I'm glad there's that pushback because they always try to, passive buffoon with no autonomy. And I love that Rachel pushes back against that narrative.
You wouldn't have to get paid for this if you had a husband.
I didn't say that he. Where did I even
You did.
mention?
You said he clearly doesn't
She did
respect
say
his
that.
Say
wife.
that. I heard you say it.
You mean the piece of shit that you're married to? Yeah, he clearly
Oh,
doesn't
there we
respect
go.
you.
Oh,
He
there
sits
we
there
go.
and makes jokes about how he married
lady.
you. He doesn't
He's
do
not
shit
the
around
piece
the
of
house
shit
because
in
that's
this
why he married a
panel.
wife.
That would be you,
That's
man.
why you got a
right.
You're
wife.
the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, let's get back to the topic here. You're the one who is
That would be
insisting
nice.
that there's no data
the
proving
list
that
of topics that we
shut
would say.
up.
I would
Shut your mouth.
genuinely.
Nobody
Okay, let
wants
me
to
hang
hear
on.
that.
Time out. I would genuinely like to know. You said it was misguided to say the coronavirus wasn't killing men fast enough. Why
Yeah, it was
would
a
you?
terrible thing to say.
So why
it was
did
a terrible
you?
thing to say.
No, I
Piers.
understand.
I
it's a
already said that the title
Don't
was
worry.
a
Let me
terrible thing
finish
to
my
say.
question. I do understand it's a terrible
Okay.
thing to say. My question.
What led her to say dark resentment? Like, that's a serious statement. That's serious. That is not a joke. That's calling for the mass, I can't say that word, mass deletion of men. And that was just misguided. No, that was very intentional. It's one thing to think that and keep that thought in your head. It's another thing to type that up and press post. That's not misguided. That was it is misguided, but let's not pretend as though it wasn't very intentional.
My bemusement. Why would you say that?
Because I was really frustrated with the articles that I was reading about how the pandemic was it was derailing women's workplace. It was derailing women's economic trajectories. And there was a specific article that I had read about a woman who had founded her own company. She was the CEO of it. Her husband had taken a sabbatical prior to the pandemic. And within 2 days of childcare closing down, he said, I can't take care of the 4-year-old. And she quit her job to go home and look after the kid.
What's
I
that
was
got to do with you
frustrated. I
wanting
was
more men
worried.
to be killed?
And
So that's one
Piers, if you're going to
person.
ask me
Who
the question,
cares?
then
The
let me
pandemic
finish
No,
it.
you know what,
Let me
Clementine?
answer it.
You know what, Clementine? When you tweet, literally,
So I wrote a tweet
coronavirus
thread.
isn't killing men fast enough. I think I'm entitled to the mass culling of men while simultaneously
Oh
pretending
my God.
you don't hate
Piers,
men.
Come on, you know that. Don't be disingenuous. You know that that's not what I was calling for. You
Okay, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean it's not what you're calling for? That's what the statement literally says. It can only mean that. All the words you put into that sentence had a meaning. More men to, be deleted off planet Earth due to the virus. That's all it could mean. There's no way to, misinterpret that. So what are you talking about?
He
that it was a-
misinterpreted
You literally
tweet of
said
kill all men.
coronavirus isn't killing
You
men
know that
fast
it was
enough.
a glib tweet, and you know that I also apologized for it shortly after that. You know that I was sincere in my apology.
You didn't apologize
so
to
why you're dragging
me.
it out 5 years? I would not apologize to you if I did something to you,
That's
let alone
hilarious.
for doing nothing to you.
Even
I
if
don't
you did
consider
something to me,
I
you
don't
wouldn't
consider you
apologize.
Was that the
a
only
person
time,
who
This is the
Clementine?
kind of
Clement, hang on,
unhinged
hang
person
on,
who
hang on,
wants all
hang
the
on, hang on.
children
I've got a
in
follow
daycare,
up.
by the way.
I have a follow up. Clementine, was that the only time you've tweeted that you want all men to be killed?
Oh boy.
Yes, why don't you just say what you want to say?
No, I'm just asking.
Oh my lord. They love calling men misogynists, but I'm glad that they're finally starting to check misandry, because it needs to be checked, because it's running rampant. And because we don't check it, and we've given women this pass that, oh, it's okay when they say those kind of things because they can't really hurt men. Right? But if men are misandrous, then they can go out and actually enact violence on women. So we have to, nip that in the bud. But women, because they're weaker, they can't really hurt men. So let's let them have, the freedom to say whatever nasty, vile things they want to and get away with it. No, that stuff does hurt men. That does affect men. And it does poison society's mindset and view and thinking that it's okay to have these kind of perspectives without pushback. It's disgusting. Thinking that, I don't even want to repeat what she said. Like, what?
Have you tweeted
No,
previously?
I have tweeted prior to that.
Kill all men.
as
Yeah.
a joke.
As a joke.
So
But if men said the equivalent to that, you think any woman would think that was a joke, no matter how much you try to convince them? No, it wasn't a joke. It's how you actually felt. Be honest. That's how you actually felt. These chicks try to pretend like they're not man haters. They absolutely are man haters, bro. I would respect her more if she was just honest about it. The fact that she's trying to pretend as though she's not, those are very definitive, very dark statements. You don't say that as a joke. And if it was a joke, there'd be a punchline. There was no punchline. There was just that. That's not a joke.
you
So
quite
there are
regularly.
examples that you can think of.
Yeah, you don't hate
One
men,
of
but you
which
did
was
tweet
5
kill
years
all
ago,
men,
and
and
one
then you
of which was
tweeted
at
the
least 10
coronavirus
years
isn't
ago.
killing men fast enough. I put it to you.
Yeah, oh, hang on. I've also
I put it to you.
also
You
tweeted-
probably do
I've
hate
also
men
tweeted
if
that
you
men
want us
should
all
be fired
dead.
into the sun.
Huh?
I've also said that men should be fired into the sun. Tell me, at what point do these very
Man should be flying into the sun. That's funny. That one was funny. It wasn't a joke, because I know now that you hate men, but that was actually funny.
clearly glib, and yes, I have apologized for them, very clearly glib tweets from a time as well where Twitter was such a toxic. I don't tweet anymore. It's a bad place for
Right,
everybody.
okay.
What does Twitter being toxic have to do with you being toxic? Don't try to offset the accountability to Twitter being toxic. Twitter can be as toxic as it wants to be, but you decide what you're going to put into Twitter. You decide what you're going to write. You decide what you're going to post. You decided that you were going to post a platform. Every individual has control of what they post there. So no, that's totally on you.
At what point do those things be accepted as glib, misguided, regrettable, deeply apologetic for them now,
Yeah.
remarks that you would never say again?
You don't sound
And
very
yet,
apologetic.
The
I think you
jokes-
should
the
just
jokes
admit
we as
that you
women
don't
are
like men.
expected to.
I think it's the problem comes when you keep in public.
But
I couldn't give a damn.
Why do I have to sit here and admit to you that I don't like men? What
'Cause
do
you
what are
don't.
I
hoping
just
to
asked you
gain
if you
out
do
of
or
this?
not. You said you don't hate
I
men.
said that
I hope she does not have a son, because you said she's a single mother. Man, I mean, she shouldn't have kids at all with this mindset. She's a feminist, and she hates men. So if she has a boy, she's going to poison him, probably can turn him into like a soft. She has a daughter, she's going to turn her into a man-hating feminist. So either way, both if she has a little boy or she has a little girl, they're screwed with a mother like this. This is the problem with single mother households. This is why they end up being such degenerates and such horrible individuals, because a lot of them, I mean, they might not have an extreme view, at least not as extreme as hers, but it's, not.
me.
Hang on.
well,
She
listen,
loves
don't
men.
wish
You
all
just
you
got to
back.
shoot him into the
All
sun.
men
That's
put
all.
in the stocks
Shoot him
in
in
the
the
You
sun
don't
sun.
like
square
me. You think
for
Andrew's a
this
piece of
behavior.
shit.
I
So
don't
that's
like
The
her.
fact
every
that she's
single
even
man
allowed
involved
to
in
talk
this debate.
way
You
publicly
hate.
is absurd.
Every
Every
man,
single
every man in
man
this
They're not
debate,
happy and
Clementine, you've
successful
said
in
you hate.
relationships
I
with
hate
men. You
every
shouldn't be
single
giving
man
advice
involved in
on
this
it.
debate.
Emily, what was that?
I hate
I'm
every man in
saying
this
if you
debate.
live a
That's
life
true.
where you've been unsuccessful in relationships, whether it's positioned to be giving advice what women should do with men. I mean, I don't feel any animosity
How do you
towards
know
men,
that
even
I've
when it comes
been
to him saying,
unsuccessful in friendships and relationships? That's a
well, are you
very
a single
odd.
mom?
That's a very odd. Well, being a single mother doesn't mean that I'm unsuccessful in relationships. I already said before that I have a very beautiful co-parenting relationship with my son's father. He lives in the same apartment building as us.
Nah, I want to hear that from him. I don't trust women when it comes to them painting how the relationship is. It's like women get to decide if the relationship is good or bad. It's like their word is it's like the ultimate, deciding factor. Like no. I want to hear from the man if the relationship is good or not. But ultimately, I don't really care that much about her. She's just one of millions. And yes, it's problematic, but I agree with her. You don't have a good relationship. You're a single mother. You hate men. You say about dating and relationships. Can you imagine her being a counselor? Can you imagine her? You're having relationship issues and you go to schedule a meeting with a counselor so you and your wife or you and your girlfriend can fix things, and then you step into her office. And you never know on the surface whether or not she's a, raging feminist, liberal man hater. You're not going to know. Her office, and then she just starts just telling you everything, just only advocating for your wife or your girlfriend, only taking her side, only seeing her perspective, and you're just not doing enough, or you're being a narcissist, and here's what's wrong with you. Bro, this is why men avoid therapy, especially relationship therapy, because it's like all you get is a bunch of hers in disguise, pretending that they're not biased, that they're impartial, but they're not. They're absolutely not. Most of them are feminists and are there to push the feminist narrative and drill that into men's skulls so they could be good little, relationship slaves.
We're deeply close friends.
That's great,
so
but it didn't work out.
I don't understand why you think that is. I'm not bitter towards men at all. I'm annoyed at the expectation that some men on this panel have, that women should do everything for them. I'm certainly angry at the fact that in the UK,
do you think Andrew does everything?
I mean, I do everything I can for my boyfriend. I'm not
angry that in the UK a woman is killed every 3 days by a man. I'm angry that in America 3 women are killed every day by a man.
How many men are killed every day by
Oh my gosh, she's angry because the man doesn't worship at the feet of the woman. The woman actually cares and loves her husband and is willing to do things for him. See, the feminist mindset is the man is supposed to just be doing everything for you. You're the most important. You're the queen. And he's supposed to be doing everything in his power, happy wife, happy life, to keep you happy. But when they see a man who's in the power position, the man who's in the leadership position, and the woman happily submitting to his authority and everything's going smoothly, they go crazy. He's not being the little, happy wife, happy life that they're expecting every man to be, trying to cater to the woman at every turn so that she doesn't divorce him. No, that's not the power dynamic, and that's scary to them.
That's kind of a different.
How many men are killed every day by men?
One woman is killed every 10 minutes. By an
how many men are
how many babies?
This is what they
one
do.
in 3 girls over the age of 15 will experience sexual violence in her lifetime.
No,
I'm very
that's
angry
another
about
fake
that.
statistic,
I'm
and I would
angry
love
about
to
rape
tear
and
this
sexual
apart.
assault.
And guess what? The chances of that happening go up even more with single mothers. So if you're so upset that women are facing sexual violence or women are facing this and they're likely to get killed and die and all this other nonsense statistics, all of those data, all those statistics go up dramatically if they're raised in a single mother household. If they're raised in a household with a father who actually cares for her and protects her, they're far safer. And we see that in the data, that children raised in 2-parent household are far more successful. They live longer, right? It's when the mother divorces the biological father and takes on another man that the kids are more at risk. That's when the death, because they get a guy who doesn't care about the kids, because they're not his. So of course he's going to do, you know, terrible things to them. Well, not of course, not every guy's going to do that, but of the men who will, that raises the likelihood. But if you would have stayed with the father who actually cared, who would literally die to protect his daughter, die to protect his son, you would have better outcomes. But you're pushing to destroy families. So, you know, there you go. So stop being so upset. You're pushing for the society that you're saying you're upset about.
I'm angry about the fact that the most dangerous person to a woman is a man that she knows. I'm
That's
angry
a
about
lie.
all of these things, yes, but that doesn't mean that I hate men. That doesn't mean that I don't.
She's
You just want to shoot him into the sun.
and I
men's
have the
great-
data to
You
prove it.
just
for
want
men's
to shoot him
greatness
into the sun.
with women and with
You
children.
want to shoot men into the sun, you want them
Oh,
killed
shoot
by
them into the sun.
coronavirus, and you want all of us dead, and you hate both the men on the panel. Other than that,
Shoot 'em
you
into
love
the
men.
sun is
We
You
get
funny.
it.
love them. You love them. They're great.
Well,
Even though they're out there being a bunch of
refute
evil.
some of the baloney she
which is
just
that I
spewed?
hate
Well, can't,
the men on this
my
panel.
thing is, like, can't you
and-
admit that you at least like men enough that they gave you a beautiful child you're super grateful of? I mean, that's a positive.
This is honestly one of the most absurd conversations I've ever had in my life.
No, because I gave him. He should be happy. He should be grateful to me that I even gave him a kid, that I even birthed his kid. I bring life into this world. We don't need men. He should be grateful. And time there's an argument and a man is bringing up, you know, good arguments as to why, you know, either, you know, it could be any variety of things, but it could be like a man arguing, let's say, for the man being the leadership, the man being in the leadership role, or let's say the man is better suited for XYZ, and they'll say, you know, women, actually, no, I've heard a better argument. Every time, let's say, I've seen this on Fresh and Fit, where Myron is arguing that men are better than women. Women hate this argument, but it's undefeated because the data cannot be, you know, the data can't be tampered with. The data is what it is. He'll argue that men are better than women, and he'll list out all these other metrics. And when women have no rebuttal, they'll say that we birthed you. Sounds like you hate women. You know, a woman pushed you out, right? You know, your mom, she gave birth to you. It's like that's their thing. They view that as like their one up on us, the fact that they give birth to us. They don't view us giving them children as like something to be grateful for. They view them having our children as the only value. That's why to us, from the feminist perspective, men are just sperm donors and they can easily be replaced. It's okay if you remove them from the dynamic because they're not important. They play their role as the sperm donor and the provider financially for said sperm. That is it. There's no greater duty for leadership, for guidance, for security, for protection. Just DNA and money. That's it. That's literally their idea of what a man is.
I've just
I
sat
kind of
here
agree.
and explained
I
that I
kind of
don't
agree.
hate men.
Yeah.
I've just sat here and explained that I have a wonderful relationship with my son's father. I've just sat here and said, you know, that I've apologized for these things that I've said in the past. We've all said terrible things. Piers, you've said terrible things on Twitter.
I haven't said terrible things or launching them into the sun, which would be funny, but I've never said that. And even on this channel, you've never seen any video of me saying I hate women or I want terrible things to happen to them or calling for the mass deletion of a population. No. No. Never said anything like that. And I push back against women heavily, and I never say stuff like that. So you have to take accountability for that. That's how you felt. That's might be how you still feel. I'm not saying it is. You know, there's a possibility. There's a possibility that she's a changed person. Do I think she is? No. But it's a possibility.
all
Well,
said terrible
name
things
one.
and apologized for
Name
laughter.
one.
I
Hang
have
on.
said,
What have I said? What have I said? Name one.
Oh, Piers, do you want me to look them up right
Yes,
now?
please.
Okay, let me
Yeah,
just
what-
give me a second.
Tell
to
me
go
a
to-
terrible
to
thing
go
I
to,
said on Twitter.
Piers Morgan.
While
Terrible
she's looking, can I
tweets.
refute her fake statistics that she just gave?
A
Because I
history
hear
of Piers
feminists
Morgan's
repeat this all
terrible
the time.
opinions.
Well,
There
go
we
on.
go. I'll look at that.
Give me a terrible opinion.
Oh, Rachel, I thought you were talking while I'm just scrolling through the
yeah.
endless
No,
Well, we
terrible.
can
no,
all
you got
wait,
the floor. I
Clementine.
wanna
The
hear it.
clock is ticking, though. I mean,
I
find one
wanna hear
terrible
it.
thing that I've tweeted.
Oh, I think that all lives matter was pretty bad.
You think all lives matter? It's a bit better than men
I
should
think
be
that all-
dying
all
faster,
lives-
isn't
all
it?
lives matter.
Let's
All
compare
lives matter
all
as
lives
a
matter
rejection
against
of Black
more
Lives
men
Matter.
should die
All
faster.
lives matter. All lives matter as a rejection of Black Lives Matter.
I didn't reject Black Lives Matter. I didn't reject Black Lives Matter. I
It's
didn't
pretty
reject
ignorant
it.
to the.
I didn't
It's
reject
pretty
Black Lives
ignorant to
Matter.
the
I didn't reject
the
Black Lives
reason
Matter.
for
Don't
Black Lives.
lie.
No, but you did.
Don't,
you
no, I
did
didn't.
tweet all lives
No, I
matter in
didn't.
response
You see,
to
this is the
it.
trouble. You
I'm
say that
seeing
I've
it
said
right
terrible
here.
things. When you try and find them, you don't have any.
I'm sorry, you're looking at it right here, Piers.
Well, go
all
on.
lives matter.
He didn't say white lives matter. He said all lives matter, which is true. And any
Matter.
I think that all lives
Matter?
deserve respect.
Do they
But
matter?
I think that in the
Do
context,
all lives matter, Clementine?
you do know what all lives do matter. And
Thank
all
you,
lives-
thank you.
all
And
lives-
that
what's controversial?
bombshell,
all
but
lives
the
are not
one
given the same
terrible thing
respect,
you
though.
found
All
I've never
lives are not
said
given the
you
same
completely
respect.
agree with. So
All
on
lives
that,
are not given the same
on that,
respect.
on that
Yes.
delightful note, where you agree with the one terrible thing that I've ever apparently said, we will leave this compelling debate. Thank you all very much
I
indeed.
will agree.
I've got to say,
I will
Rachel,
agree that you derailed
I think Rachel, it's lovely to see
conversation
a
about
very
Black Lives
happily
Matter to
married
say that all
couple
lives
who
matter. That's what
genuinely
I will
like
agree
each other.
about.
So thank you for coming on Uncensored.
It is great. Hey, you know what? That debate was wild. That was wild, but it was good to see pushback, man. Because feminists like that who are out here, you know, with their agendas, but nobody calls them out. And I think we need to start looking into these people's history and seeing the kind of stuff that they write. Go look at their TikToks. Look at the people who comment under their TikToks, and they like the comments. Bro, overall, I would say that Andrew and Rachel Wilson, power couple. In my book, that's a power couple. I love the message that they push. I love that they were pushing back against the society and that it's better for women and it's better for children and the structure and all this other nonsense, that you can be a working mother but also still be a present mother, which literally is a contradiction, because if you're at work, you're not present for the child. He's or she is with another person taking care of them. Definition of not being present, right? So yeah, I love this pushback. Now the lady in the middle, the younger woman who had that little TikTok clip, I believe that she has a little bit of undercover feminism in her, but through hearing her talking points, I think she does lean more conservative. But a lot of women have a little bit of feminism in them, you know? And even the traditional ones still have little bits and pieces here and there that will come out, and you just gotta, Ruby said there. And, she apologized for it. She said, that was the wrong word to say, trapped. So she took accountability for that. So I can respect it. I can respect it. And she's young. She's doing TikTok. She's learning. But overall, I think this was a good debate. We need more pushback. And I want to see more of Rachel on here, because I've been watching a lot of her interviews, and she does a really good job pushing back against feminist channel when it comes to Andrew Wilson, Rachel. Debates on a wide variety of topics, when it comes to relationships, dating, also politics. I like politics, but I do know this is a relationship channel, so I'm only going to sprinkle politics here and there. The reason why I'm doing politics is because, one, I'm interested in it, and two, it does have a downstream effect on dating. I'm going to try to keep it as relevant as possible, but some days we're just going to just take a break from the dating stuff and just focus on the politics. And because there's more to life than just dating and relationships. There really is. There's more to life than sex, women, dating, relationships. There's far more things at play that have bigger consequences on society and overall your life. So I don't want this channel to just be dating and relationships. So from time to time, we're going to branch out. And I'm going to be live streaming more often, a lot more often. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to iron down a specific time that I'm going to live stream every day. But until now, the best way to watch my live streams is to hit the notification bell. That way, when I go live, you'll be alerted. Because right now, I don't have an exact time. But as I continue to live stream, I'm going to see which time works best for me in terms of like, work and school, and I'm going to allot a time to get this done. But stay tuned. I'm probably going to be back a little bit later to live stream again with another video, so stay tuned for that. If not tonight, then it'll be definitely tomorrow evening. So stay tuned for that, guys. And for those who watch the video or who will be watching the video later after this gets posted, thank you for joining the stream. Thank you for leaving a comment. Thank you for liking the video. And yeah, stay tuned for more, guys. And feel free to hop into the discussion and let me know what you guys think about the topic. Let me know how the audio sound, how the video sounded. We're getting back into live streaming, and I want to make this as professional as possible. And to do that, I need your help. I need your feedback. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will see you guys later.